Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Evidence is evidence. It's public. Everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
For newcomers and old-timers alike, the Chloe Sanctuary hopes to give you insight into the health and happiness of your companion parrots. We hope to help you build happy homes using reliable and proven tools. The best homes are built on a rock-solid foundation. And the best foundation for a happy home is the bedrock of science. When we stand on the shoulders of giants, the scientists who have worked long and diligently to understand our companions, we can reach new heights of understanding. And understanding is the key to success.
I think treated, most of these birds have a good prognosis, and I would say
What does avian veterinary medicine have to tell us about our feathered friends? How can we prevent illness, see the signs of disease before it's too late, and care for our birds through ill health? What light does behavioral science shed on their nature, needs, and hopes? How can the tools of behavior shaping make our homes happier for us and our companions?
Shake.
How can we deal with biting, screaming, or other misbehavior? What is it like to live among parrots? Let them roam around about you and share a life with them. How much freedom do you give them? What happens if you form a bond of trust with them? Watch and see what understanding their true nature can do for you. Come with us on a journey as we do more than examine a parrot's world. We live in it. Make some popcorn and bring in a few wood blocks. Let everyone have something to chew and a comfortable place to perch. Cockatude is a presentation of the Chloe Sanctuary for Parrots and Cockatoos, a nonprofit charity dedicated to the empowerment of captive parrots and public awareness.
I'd like to do a big shout out to those people who make this video cast possible. Cockatude would not be possible without our patrons. And so, here they are. Kaya E., Svetla K., Lisa H., Jennifer G., Delphina L., Christopher, Peggy J., Cindy M., Ruth C., Vivian G., Elaine W., Lori B., Tobias L., Deborah E., Brad L., Mercedes L., Sonia H., Brenda B., Dash R., Dan R., Jody, Dan H., Jessica, Michael F., Janice F., Mary M., Timothy F., John S., Lena P., Sissy S., Regina J., and Debbie M. And a great big thank you to our two newest patrons, Emma S. and Denise S. Thank you so much for being our two newest patrons. Without these patrons giving us of their hard-earned cash, we couldn't continue doing this podcast. I'd like to urge you to please give us at least $1 per episode. We do 2 episodes a month. We'd like to do more, but in order to do that, we have to have the time. And right now I'm spending a lot of time trying to beat the bushes for the Chloe Sanctuary. It's not easy taking care of birds that are severely damaged, both emotionally and physically. So, please, I urge you, become one of our patrons. And I'm sure that Peaches would thank all of our patrons in person if she got the chance. We try to answer questions from our viewers as we can. If you are a patron, be sure to email us at patron@chloesanctuary.org and your questions will take precedence. We always put our patrons first because they put us first. Hi, and welcome to Cockatude, Cockatoos with Attitude, episode 64, Viewer Questions. You have any questions? Do you Pippa? Pip, 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 pip. I'd like to get that on video. This one does a cute little thing with her head where she says pip, pip, and moves her head back and forth. Pip, pip, pip. Not today? Oh well. What are you doing? You leave her alone. Snowball. You leave her alone. No, Snowball. Come on now. Calm down. Hey. Hey. Now calm down. Here, get on his hand. I gotta move him. You go sit up here. Go on. You're not gonna go after Sugar. You're not. You're gonna leave Sugar alone, okay? Well, we get a lot of viewer questions, and about once a quarter, once every 3 months, we'll do a viewer questions episode. We got some interesting questions that we've acquired over the last few weeks, and we think you might find them interesting. What do you think? What? Oh, you want me to pet you? Is that what you want? Okay. Yes, Pete, I know you want to be petted. I got a Sugar begging right now, though. Now, the first question is from Vernon K., who asked if we use a steam cleaner. And if we do, what kind of attachments do we use? And the answer is yes, we do use a steam cleaner. We make sure the birds are not in the room. When we steam clean, mainly we just steam and clean the kitchen and the bathroom. So birds being in the bathroom, that's not happening anyway, unless somebody's taking a shower. But as far as the kitchen, we make sure that the windows in the kitchen are open. The windows to the bird room are all closed. And we actually I contacted the manufacturer of the one that I bought. And I made sure there was no Teflon in the unit. They throw Teflon in everything these days, so I asked. That's a good question to ask. And make sure that you always use purified water, RO or distilled water, so that you don't build up a bunch of sludge inside the unit. The steam coming out of there, depending on what you're cleaning, you're putting some of that nasty stuff in the air too, okay? So you want to make sure that when you're using a steam cleaner, the birds are not in the room. They can handle steam, it's not like they can't, but it's just that there may be other things that are coming along with that steam which won't be good for them. Now, as far as attachments, I generally don't use any attachments if I'm cleaning the cages with them. So if I'm cleaning their bird room after they've gone to bed, the main bird room, or the back room and using the steam cleaner, in those cases, I don't use an attachment, except there is one little end that has a tiny brush on it that I put on there sometimes, but it's pretty much like not using any kind of attachment at all. Now, obviously, I use attachments when I'm doing the kitchen floor or doing the facing of the kitchen cabinets. There, I use the flat panel with the microfiber pad on it. But as far as with their cages, no attachment at all. And I had the steam cleaner for about a month before somebody managed to sneak up. No, Bob, no. Get over here. Managed to sneak up and chew on the hose. Of course, it wasn't on when they did that. There is a silica tape that you can get that will seal that off. It's a silicone-based tape. Places like Home Depot should have it, or any place that has hardware. And it's often, you'll see it in a section where it says it's heat resistant, up to 400 or 500 degrees. It's an electrical insulator, so you can wrap it around something like an open electrical connection, and it's got 3,000 volts that protects you against that kind of thing. But it self-seals, okay? Silicone on silicone. So you wrap it around and you just wrap it tightly and then cut it off and it'll stick. It'll stay there. So that's how I fixed it, these guys are going to find something to chew on. So you got to be real careful with that too, huh guys? What do you say, Pip? Pip, Pip, Pip. Pippa. You going to do your Pippa, Pip, 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 Pip. Pippa. Aw, it's okay, girl. You don't have to. You be nice now. You're stuck on my finger. Well, you're stuck on my finger and I can't pet Sugar. She seems all happy over there though. Stacy asked the question, what kind of pellets do you use? You use pellets, right? And why? We recently switched. And the only reason we weren't using Harrison's, which we are now, is because it's more than double the price. But the quality is incredible. It's all food grade and ingredients, most of which are organic. In this case, organic means something. Well, we can handle more pesticides in our system than these guys. It's not so bad for us, but it is pretty bad for these guys if they get any pesticides in them. So Harrison's is the pellet we use. They basically have just a couple of sizes, and they thought it out pretty well. They have a little tiny pellet for the small birds like conures and senegals and that kind of thing. And then they have the larger pellet, which works for most of these birds. They're square instead of tubular. Like a lot of pellets come in weird shapes and that kind of thing. I don't think the birds care what shape it is. They've only got 300 taste buds compared to our 3,300. Maybe we would be better off if we only had 300 because we would probably eat less junk. But nonetheless, they get Harrison's, and what I do is I put the Harrison's into our mash. You soften it up. You run it through a good blender, a blender that'll blend it all the way through. I use a magic bullet, but there's a lot of other things you could use. I shouldn't say a NutriBullet because that's a bigger unit. But what, baby? Oh, you gotta go to the bathroom? All right, you can go up there if you need to go. No fighting with Salamander. You be nice, Salamander. You be nice. You be nice. And Harrison's has a good guidebook that you can read on their website. The only thing I don't agree with is they have some supplements you can give your birds. I don't think any of those are necessary. You stop being mean. You stop it now. No. There she goes again. Are you okay? Yeah, you didn't hit very hard. You better not. You better not. No. They have an excellent bird care guide online. The only part of it I don't agree with is there are some supplements they have, vitamin supplements and things to spray on the feathers. I don't do any of that. I don't think there's any scientific evidence backing up that working for anything. Great customer service. If you have any questions, they'll answer them. The reason we use pellets is because we don't know exactly what they need to eat, but the scientific research on avians in general has produced some basics. And their bodies are quite different than ours, and they require things in different levels than we do. So their nutrition is different than ours, so we have to make sure they're getting what they need. None of us are experts, so in order to make sure that they get what they need, using a scientifically formulated pellet is your best bet. They still should get, some vegetables and fruit. They especially need things like squash and anything that's got fiber in it, because they need to be able to evacuate everything about every 20 minutes to every half hour. And if they're not getting enough moisture, we don't know, but it seems probable the two things that cause cloacal prolapses are a lack of exercise and not enough liquid and fiber in the diet. That's our guess at the moment. We'll never know for sure, but at least we can see how those two things could add up. But that's our best guess right now. Padma G asks, what do you feed your birds during illness? And if you've got a bird that's sick and it's under care of the doctor, hand feeding formula is the best thing to feed them. You can use a large syringe, a 30, for a bigger bird, use a 30 milliliter or a 60 milliliter syringe. Use the ones with the O-rings though, don't get the one. They have some that have these big rubberized caps inside. You don't want those. They don't last very long, you're throwing them away quickly. I'm talking about you might get a month or two out of them. Out of an O-ring, be sure you keep them clean and sterile of course, but out of an O-ring, as long as you spray the O-ring with a little cooking oil once in a while, you can get a couple of years out of one of them. You'll eventually lose all the markings on the side, but if you're just using the feed, you can get a rough idea of where the markings would lead anyway. I'm not letting you up there to bother her, so you don't need to yell at me for stopping you, okay? I didn't hurt you. All I did was try to stop you. So if you give them that formula, and you got to make sure it's the right temperature. They aren't going to want to eat it if it's cold. And the way you want to give it to them on the syringe. Okay, you got the beak like that, and you got the syringe right here. Once you get the syringe in there and start feeding that warm food around 105 to 108 degrees into their beak, use a laser thermometer for that. Don't guess, because if you burn their crop, then they won't be able to eat right for the rest of their lives. So you hold it, apply it like that. Some birds will actually act like little babies, and they'll start going like this and go, and eat the food, but depends on the bird. For an umbrella, about 30 milliliters of food is about right. For a Moluccan, probably 40 to 45 milliliters. Littler birds, obviously less. But all that's pretty much easy to find on the web if you search for the amounts that these birds eat. But that's what I feed them. I'll give them extra water with a syringe. Or in like Bob's case, he likes to drink out of a bottle, so I would just put up a water bottle, let him drink out of it. Right, Bob? Yes, I know she's your species, and you really want to get to know her. I know that. She's not too much on wanting to get known yet, though. She's getting there. She's getting there, this little girl, aren't you? We're missing a bird.
Peaches is an amazing personality. Her daily maintenance requires dedication and mindfulness. She requires 2 forms of medicine, 7-course meals, and effort to entice her to eat. Extensive preening every day, special tools to trim nails, constant attention to her vocalizations, daily walks, and twice yearly checkups due to the possibility of impacted feather follicles and the nature of her spinal injuries. It seems a common misconception among the general public that parrots are like toys in a toy box. Nothing could be further from the truth. They are complex creatures. Recently, scientific studies have shown them to be at least as intelligent as chimpanzees. Every captive parrot needs special humans who will dedicate themselves to understanding them, those who know their species as it lives in the wild. Special people that understand their social, mental, and physical needs. They need to be understood for what they are, and not as merely human companions, as circus performers to bring smiles. Peaches needs all this and more. She is our special girl. Will you help us care for Peaches? Please make a donation today at our website, chloesanctuary.org. That's spelled CHLOESANCTUARY.org. As a special thank you for your donation, we will joyfully send you a postcard with Peach's happy face.
We're missing a bird. Hold on. Missing a bird. Where's Lucy? Oh, there's Lucy. Didn't even know where you were, Lucy. I couldn't see you. Come on, you can get back up here. Hey, Luce. You want to sit on my chest? Come here, Luce. Come on, Luce. There's a loose goose. Oops, I'm sorry. There's a loose goose. There's a loose goose. Now that's a girl. And the vets will tell you too that if you've got a bird that's not feeling well, you want to keep the temperature up. Usually you modify an aquarium and put some kind of heater in there. Make sure it's regulated. You don't want them getting too hot. You can kill them by getting them too hot. And if they're too cold, their body has to work to keep them warm. So you get it up into the 85 degrees and keep it right around there so they don't have to fight to stay warm. And that helps them recover. Dirk G asks if it's all right for a bird to just have a play gym and no cage. Basically, in other words, just be out of. What did you do? You scared her. You okay? You be nice. Don't scare her. Okay? You be nice. She's a good girl. She's a good. Just leave her alone. I know you want to preen her. I know that. It's good for them to be cage trained. If you have a safe area, which is no exposed electrical cords, that's a big one. Nothing that they can hurt themselves on. No places they can get caught. If you have something hanging they could get themselves stuck in and strangle themselves, that's not good. You need to make sure that the area is completely bird safe. And if you have a bird safe room, when I say that, they are social animals too, so if you have a bird safe room and they ever get any attention, that's not going to be good. So if you have like a living room that's bird safe, you have a TV that's mounted on the wall that they can't get to, and if they're flying birds, there's ways to do it. There's ways to make it safe so that they won't fly and land on the television and start, working their way down to the electrical cords coming out the back. You've got a bird safe room and it's a room that you live in too and it's all social, then by all means you could have them out, but you still need to have a cage they can go in for they can feel secure. They need a little home. When nighttime comes around and it's time for them to go to sleep, they need to go into a small cage. Lest they become afraid and start flying around in the dark in a room, who knows what they hit. Like in this room, if they were to be in the dark in this room, and they got a night fright, they could fly into, let's say, that perch over there and hurt themselves. So a small cage limits the amount that they can beat themselves around if they get scared. I really believe they need that. I know people who have birds that don't cage them at all. I mean, let's face it, they don't belong in cages, but for their own safety at night, they're not going to be going around anywhere at night anyway. That brings up the reason we have two cages. And there's a couple of reasons, but the main reason we use two cages, a night cage and a day cage, is so that they have that safety and security at night, and they have another play area during the day. But also with new people, when they learn to do this, they have to transport them from the night to the day cage and the day cage back to the night cage. So that means that it trains the person, the caretaker, to also move their bird. So on the days that you're really busy, you still have to move them. And then generally, if you interact with your bird, you're going to want to interact more because they're very fascinating, aren't they? What do you think, Pippa? Are you fascinating? Are you a fascinating girl? Yes, you are. So the answer is with caveats. Yeah, you could do it. But keep in mind too, if the bird is not used to a cage, you're not going to live forever. Most people are not going to take a bird and want it out all the time. So you have a bird that's used to being out, and I've known a bird like this, and all of a sudden it has to be living in a cage, that isn't good for the bird. So you're probably better to keep them out on that perch part of the day, but still cage them for at least an hour or two, just so they get used to the idea that they may have to be in a cage for some time. And if they get used to playing in there and there's plenty of toys, They may even go in there on their own, especially if that's where you hang the toys. And if they're out and there's nothing much else to do, they'll go into their cages and become more comfortable with them. Nikita K asks, what kind of harness do you use? And we use the aviator harness, and there's a number of reasons for that. It's one piece, and once you learn how to put it on, you got to put it over their head, then lift their wing and stretch it around here, and then stretch it around the other wing. There's a DVD that comes with it. It explains how to do it. If you're not used to handling birds and you're not good at it, then you be sure you'd watch the DVD and follow the directions. They take a little while, but once they get used to it, especially if you put them in a harness and take them out to play, take them outside right away, and they learn that harness means outside. And in a harness, outside means I'm free to a certain extent. I can fly a little bit because you got about a 6-foot flight they can do in the harness if you allow them to. They can get some flight that way. And the nice thing about the aviator harness is when they fly, it has a stretchable line. So they go down to the ground slowly if they fly off. They don't get jerked to the ground. Also, the way it's designed, if their body turns, the harness turns with it, so they don't get yanked. It actually moves. The base of it moves so that they don't get hurt. It's the only way they can get out of it, and it would take a long time. Even Bob's, who is good at chewing on them, he has taken the little centerpiece, which is stitched. I mean, that thing is stitched tight. He has worked it. Let's say every time you're not looking at him, he works a little bit. In a whole day, let's say at the Renaissance Fair, he has managed to completely break that free. You still can't get out of it. It's just that at that point, you can't put it back on without somehow restitching that piece. And if you've got a sewing machine, you can do it. But they can't get out of it, and that's a good thing. I will say one thing: make sure you do what the DVD says. Once you get that harness on them, you should be able to put a finger up under the harness and no more. And the reason for that is if you leave too much room, they might get a foot up in there and they get their foot caught. You don't want that to happen. That happened to me once. It was at the Renaissance Fair, in fact, and Snowball freaked out. I got some pretty good bites from that because he was so scared. He wasn't mad at me, obviously. He wasn't upset with me. He was just scared. So be sure that you don't, but you don't want to over tighten it either. So if you can get your finger up through there, then it's cool. Your finger can be tight in there, but your finger has to fit, that's all. Another thing is it doesn't affect their crop the way it's designed. It stays in position, it doesn't scoot back and forth on their body. Like some of these harnesses can bunch up around their head. This won't do that. It has a longer piece in the back, and once you get it cinched on there, it stays pretty much solid that way. Where it will change is up in the front if it gets pulled on, but it doesn't change on the back. It has fewer pressure points against the body. It all sits pretty even throughout the body. The only place that there is any pressure felt is if you're yanking on the front of it. And it doesn't affect the food in their crop. It's not going to make them feel pressure in their crops, so it was well thought out. Phoebe M asks, my bird is trying to feed me. What should I do? Well, you don't want to feed a bird out of your mouth. And the reason is we have E. coli in our system. It's necessary for us. It helps us digest food, but they don't. And E. coli is a poison to them. So a friend of mine who's a paramedic said, well, that's true, but you don't have E. coli in your mouth. Well, it all depends on your bathroom hygiene. Whether or not you get E. coli on your hands and then at some point touch your lips. Most people are going to wash their hands coming out of the bathroom, and if you're good at washing your hands, that may not be an issue. And what I mean by good is a friend of mine who was a meat cutter showed me how to wash hands, and it's not what you think. Just running a little piece of soap. He actually, in his meat cutter, as he would lather up his hands, and then he would do this for this finger, and this for this finger, and work his way all around every finger, okay? And then he'd also massage under his nails to get anything out of that. Now, meat cutters have got a lot of different bacteria and things that he's trying to get off his hands. But he would actually, this is how, whenever he went to the bathroom, he would do this. I found a solution to that myself, though. I just use nitrile gloves. So, if you're using gloves, you're not going to get that stuff on your hands. But, right? But you don't want to feed them. They don't have any saliva in their beak. Okay, right? They don't produce saliva. They don't need it. And we do. And the things that are on our saliva don't really jive with their bodies either. So, there's nothing good inside of our mouth that they can have. So don't do that. You can, if a bird's trying to feed you, you can talk pleasantly to them. You can pet them on the head and thank them for offering the food, because that's how they feed each other, and they also feed their young. But you don't want to get into regurgitating anything into their mouth. You don't want to be kissing their beaks, getting any of your saliva on them. So. Tamara B says, can I keep my 2 female umbrella cockatoos in the same cage? Rule of thumb, 1 bird to 1 cage. If any kind of territoriality, now see, if you have 2 females together, then you figure what's the problem. But let's say that you have someone in the house who's been improperly petting one of the females. If that female becomes attached to that human, or another bird in the house, and there's 2 females in there, there may be a territorial dispute. And that can be bloody. It's more common between male and female, but it could happen with 2 females in a cage or 2 males in a cage. So just keep them in separate cages. That way they have their own territories too. Okay, instead of trying to share territory, just think about roommates you've had in the past. Think about it that way. And the reason you don't want a male and female in the cage is because they're known to kill each other. The male will kill the female. And in some species of birds, not cockatoos, but some other species of birds, it has been known that a female will kill a male. So we just don't keep them in the same cage. And we keep an eye on them when they're out playing. Right, Salamander? Rada A asks, which parrots are best for a family with a newborn and a toddler? And my answer to that is they haven't made the parrot that's good for that yet. These guys really shouldn't be in that environment. I've known people who've done it, and if you have a background in applied behavior analysis, reward training, you could probably succeed. But if you have a parrot and it starts to think that that child is taking over its territory, you can have an issue, and it'll be your fault for allowing it to happen. So if you don't have a parrot, you have small children, don't get a parrot. The only exception to that is if you have training in applied behavior analysis. Now I'll tell you why. Let's say that you're pregnant, you're going to have a baby, and you know that you've already got a parrot. At that point, you would know this is the baby's room. So what you do right away is start taking the parrot in there, setting a perch up next to where the baby's going to be, and that's where you give the treats. That's where you train your birds, right there. And the day that you bring the baby home, you bring the parrot right in, and the parrot gets treats. And you're going to have to be careful, too, because not only do you have to work with the parrot so the parrot's comfortable with the baby, you have to make sure that when the baby screams because it wants something, because you know how the babies are, they have to scream because they have no other way to communicate. When they start hollering they want something, if that bird sees you run to go get that baby something, then the bird's going to learn. Yeah, if I make that horrible screaming sound, then I'll get what I want too. You don't want that. So that's why I say there are a lot of issues that can be mitigated. There's a lot of ways that you could have that situation, a parrot and small children. But if you're not trained, you could end up in a terrible situation. And what usually happens is that people who do that end up giving away that parrot, and that parrot ends up going to another home and another home and another home. Because if you're not skilled in dealing with issues like that, you're not going to make it happen. I mean, it's like winning the lottery, the big one, to make that happen by accident. And all the love, people say, well, just show them both love. That's great. You can show them all the love in the world, but it isn't going to stop them from being who they are. It isn't going to stop the baby from wanting what it wants. It's not going to stop the bird from wanting what it wants. And if there's a conflict between the two, most people are going to choose the baby over the bird. We're a trained behaviorist. We'll simply make sure that both get what they need and that they don't learn bad behaviors from each other, only positive ones. So, right, Bob? Yeah? You need something to go with that straw, or is the straw by itself okay? Peaches, what are you doing over there? Peaches! 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 Peachy girl! Peachy girl! Peach, 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 peach. Paula D asks, how do I teach my bird to dance? Well, some will dance and some won't. It's the same with talking. Some will want to talk and some won't. As with African greys, about half of them make all kinds of funny sounds and never really care about talking. And then some of them like to talk, so you have to be happy with what you get. And so if you're focused on, I want a bird that's going to dance, you probably don't really want a bird. But if you're going to try to teach your bird to dance, what are you doing? You're not going to do that. No, come here. No, I know what you're up to. No, leave her alone. Leave her alone. You don't need to go after her. Here's another piece of wood, Bob. I know, Pippa. So if you want to try to teach a bird to dance, you can dance with the bird, modeling. They often learn by just watching someone else. So I've actually taken birds that already dance and I show them new moves and they pick them up. Not that I'm a great dancer or anything, but if I show them something different, they'll imitate it. So if you put music on, make it a habit of putting music on, and when you do dance around, then if they have the desire to dance, that's going to give them the opportunity. A lot of birds will, but not all will. Some will dance well, some will, this one, he's a good dancer. I found that out when I had him in the van and we were heading somewhere, and I put on Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog by Elvis, and he was just moving his head back and forth and shaking to the music and wolf whistling and doing all kinds of things. He's just a tremendous dancer. Going back and forth on his feet and right at the time of the music. Cecil's a good dancer. So be happy with what you get, whether it dances or not. It's going to have something it does that you like. You aren't going to decide before you have a child, well, I want one that's going to play the piano and be a great pianist. Well, you can want that all you want, but unless the child shows an interest in playing the piano, even if you teach them, from age 3 on up, how to play a piano, they may end up playing well. It may even end up playing well, and just simply choose not to play once they leave your home. And then only play when forced to. So you never know what you're going to get. Whether your child's going to be an artist or an engineer or a cab driver. You don't know. So just be happy with what you get. It is ignorance of Bob's nature that turned Babalu into a living gargoyle. Bob's would-be parents made a hasty choice and found themselves in living hell, torn between guilt and frustration. I have seen the joy in Babalu's eyes now that he has a new life with me as his companion. To see Babalu love and trust again is worth the effort of a lifetime. But, once again, Bob is heading toward the pain of separation. My heart nearly broke the day I discovered that he was heading toward a cloacal prolapse, that his life will be cut short. To find love and acceptance and then have it stolen away from you by failing health is too much to bear. We can slow the progress of his failing health, but we can't stop it. He will need several surgeries, and eventually Babalu will die. We want to give him the best possible life until that day. His surgeries will become progressively more expensive over time. Won't you please lend Babalu a hand and donate to his medical fund today? Our donation button is on our webpage at www.chloesanctuary.org. Just be sure to say, "For Bob," in the notes when you donate. Marcus C. says, "What kind of a parrot should I get for my girlfriend? Her birthday's coming up next month." The short answer is don't. Unless she actively is looking to get a bird and you're going to have her there making the choice herself, and she has some education about what she's choosing to do, it's going to be a nightmare. You never want to buy one of these wonderful creatures as a surprise gift for someone. My dad did that with my mother. Bought my mother an African Grey, and that lasted about 6 months. My mother tried everything in the world to try to figure out how to deal with this bird. This was a long time. These were all at that time, all the birds were wild caught. And ended up giving the bird to an older couple that knew what they were doing, and the bird lived happily ever after, as far as I know. But getting her a bird and bringing it home was one of the worst things he ever did, so you don't want to do that. Now, if you think she wants one, then you can start by maybe getting her a book on like Parrots for Dummies. That's a good starting book. And some of the books by Barbara Heidenreich are good starter books. That would be better. And then when the time comes, look into a rescue, because the rescues will know about those birds. They'll know what the bird does and what it doesn't do. They'll have a good idea of how well it fits into certain circumstances. So getting an education about what you're getting is important, and certainly you don't want to try to bring home a bird to someone as a gift. Jasmine E. asks for having some work done on our garage, construction work, and I'm not sure how much noise my parrot's going to be able to handle. How much noise can they handle? Well, each bird is a study of one, so some birds will be more upset by noise than others. I found that most of them don't have much of a problem with noise, especially if you're playing some music in the background. I put on some classical music, a little Mozart or Beethoven or something like that. Some Richard Wagner or opera, anything. Before your construction work starts, if you could turn the music up a little louder and a little louder, get a bunch of loud music in there so they get used to hearing loud music, that'll help. I've gone through with these birds here, we've had fireworks and it didn't even faze them. They're like, well, whoopee, there's fireworks. Some birds will become frightened by it though, so it's an individual thing. But remember, their voices, these bigger birds, are at about 125 decibels, so it's not like they aren't used to hearing loud sounds. So you can get them used to it by playing music. Trying to get them used to construction noise. You could even use a looped construction sound in the background, just make it very low. You could download sound effects of construction work, that kind of thing, and play it lower and then gradually increase the sound until the bird is not, you're sure the bird's not going to be too reactive to it. If they are frightened by it, you could try putting them in the room farthest away from the sound. Putting a television on. There are some CDs where you have birds playing and that kind of thing. So you can put those on. And once once they get used to that, if those birds aren't being upset by the sound on the screen, it kind of helps them get past it. Aaron M. says, I live in Southern California, and I live in an area where we get fires. How should I prepare? Well, you should have a carrying cage for, if you have more than one bird, you should have an individual carrying cage for each bird. We have a van, and all those cages are already loaded into the van. You need to have a bag with the food and the water and everything all prepared and ready to go for those emergencies, just like you would for an earthquake or something for yourself. You want to make sure you have a medical kit that has, the usual things in it. Hemostats in case they have a blood feather problem. You should have superclot for any kind of injuries if they're bleeding. Just your basic medical kit. We have a video on that. You should know, depending on where the fires are, which direction you're going to go. Now here's the other question. If the smoke rolls in, and you've got smoke all around your building and it's getting thick, and that can happen when the fire is far away. And it happens here because we're next to Camp Pendleton, so they are always, they seem to wait out there for the hot days that are dry, and then they start firing live ammo to set off fires. So what happens here is there's a wind that blows after 2 o'clock towards the ocean. And that'll blow it away. But then it shifts, and then the wind blows back the other way, and the wind blows back the other way, and we get the smoke. So when that happens, if it's bad, take duct tape, seal all around the windows. The vents that go off on the roof, like to the furnace, you can't block all of them, okay? But the one to the furnace, the one to your kitchen, if you have anything else that vents through the roof that's not plumbing, you don't want to block off your plumbing vents. I just go up there and put plastic bags around. I put plastic bags around them and tape it on with duct tape so that none of that smoke will come in. Yeah, you end up having to go outside to do this. And best if you put a mask on yourself. If there's a bunch of smoke, or you're going to be hacking, right? And then come back in and duct tape all the seams to all the doors and all the windows to keep from getting the smoke in the house. Run a HEPA filter in every room. One that is specifically designed to take out smoke. Anything that's a true HEPA that takes out 99.99% of the elements in the air will say it covers smoke. It'll say that it takes smoke out of the air. Run those, and that's if there's so much smoke outside that you really can't just take them outside and get them into your vehicle. Because if you're taking them out and they're breathing smoke for a couple of minutes, that may be enough to kill them. So you don't want that to happen. So if it's that bad and there's no threat of your building burning down, then just seal it off and stay in there till the smoke stops. Now, if you're one of those places where the wind blows in 2 different directions, like it does here, depending on the time of day, when the wind blows by and clears everything, if you need to get out, that's when you pack up and you're gone. Okay? Be sure you take enough with you so that they have enough food to last them at least a week. Enough food and water for at least a week. Right? And have your place that you're going to go well prepared, a friend's house, or wherever it is you're going to go, have it all prepared out. Lisa T says, my bird is loud. It's a Moluccan. How do I protect my ears? Well, there's a few caveats here. For example, with that gentleman over there, Salamander, if I put in earplugs, it doesn't bother him. But if I put on those big earmuffs, the flight kind that'll mask up to 37 decibels, he freaks out. I mean, he wants to kill you. He becomes a cruise missile. So, depending on your bird, and if you ease them into it slowly, such as if you buy flight earmuffs, the kinds that are used by flight crews, if you bring them in where the bird can see it in the room and put them on a perch and train them, give them treats, get them used to it right off the bat. Don't just introduce it straight off. This is something you're going to be using a lot. whenever they get noisy. So you want them to adjust to it, to get them acclimated. So if you bring it into the room, sit it down, you give them their treats, play with them a little bit where they can see that thing, and slowly bring it closer. It's especially more important with parrots too, because cockatoos usually get used to things easier. But get it where they can see it, and then eventually you put them on when you're relatively close, not so close that they could lunge and bite if they got scared, but close enough that you can see their reaction to it. Once you get them on, if they're not reacting too bad, you give them a few treats, then you should be able to wear those. Sometimes though, you can just walk into a room with them and it doesn't bother them. It doesn't bother Cecil, doesn't bother Snowball, doesn't bother Bob, Sugar. The only one it bothers is Salamander, so it depends on your bird. You can also get those little earplugs. There's little foam earplugs, and those help. They knock out about 20 decibels. That's enough to keep you from going completely deaf. There are also etymotic ones that they're made of silicone, and they have little. I have them in my pocket. There we go. These are etymotics. No, Bob, you don't need to eat it. Okay? You can still hear through these. They're going to knock out about 20 decibels, but they also make it so you can hear what's going on. It's not muffling the sound, it's just reducing the sound. Bob, they're going to go back in my pocket now. Thank you. Oh, you're all interested. I just want to eat those. Yeah, I know. If you're living around parrots, you're probably going to end up with ringing ears. One thing I notice, because I can't always put in earplugs and that kind of thing. If I put on a headset that's supposed to mask sound, it doesn't get quiet. What happens is I hear all this ringing noise. It's because of the damage that's been done to my ears. I've run some hearing tests on myself and using my iPhone and an application, and the upper frequencies are pretty weak. They seem to knock out most of the upper frequencies. I still have my lower frequencies. So I've lost about 25% of my upper hearing range. And so obviously I just turn up the treble on music I'm listening to so I can hear the voices. But you can even use a combination. You can put in foam and put over a headset. You're not going to stop hearing them, but you can protect your ears that way. Sam Z says, I hear that you shouldn't use scented things in the house. Is there anything you can use to sweeten the smell in the house? Now what we do is we take, as far as we know this works, we've heard other people using it, but nobody's done any tests, okay? We put cinnamon sticks, 5 cinnamon sticks, in a gallon of water and boil it. And it's like potpourri. I don't know about potpourri, but I know that cinnamon sticks haven't bothered them. So, and then you just take your hot water that's been boiled and stick it in the room and let it give the fragrance of cinnamon to the room. There may be other ways to do this, and if anybody knows, let me know, but I use the cinnamon myself. And Abel T asks, how do I train my bird to poop on command? Well, the first thing is we don't use commands with birds. We use cues. You cue a behavior. So it's kind of like when they're making a movie, they do a cue and then they start doing a scene. It's the same thing with these guys. So you don't want to teach your bird to poop on cue, actually. What you want to do is to teach your bird where to poop and how to tell you it needs to go. Because if you teach them to poop on command and they're somewhere and they need to go and they're not going to go until you give them the command, in this case the cue, then you could end up causing a cloacal prolapse because they're using muscles to hold it in that the birds don't normally do. They normally don't hold it in. So you don't want to teach them to hold it in. It's unnatural. So what happens if Bob needs to go, he'll go off and he knows where he can go, and then he'll just go there and go. So he'll go over to the perch, climb up on it, go and come back down. That's what happens. So now the way you tell is a bird will lower its tail a little bit, and then raise it back up. And go. So you look for that. So you watch for it. They lower their tail and raise it up. Now what you can do, as soon as they start to lower that tail, you can pick them up and put them on a perch. So if I was holding her and she won't do it. She wants to go on a perch. That's, as my dad used to say, you don't poop where you eat. They don't poop on the people they're with, that kind of thing. So once you see the tail drop, if you go to move them, they'll stop going. They'll stop going to the bathroom. You put them up there and encourage them. You know, whatever word you want to use, you can say poop or go. I just generally just say go. You go. And then they'll go, and then from there on out, you put them over on the perch, and if they go, you praise them. And when they go anywhere else that you don't want them to, you don't praise them. So they learn the places they can go. When I'm out and about with them, I will put them out like this, okay? And then I'll say, you need to go, go, go. And if they need to go, they will. But it's not a they have to go situation. It's rather like, here I'm giving you the opportunity if you need to go. 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell me before I get to that point. So the main thing to remember is that you're cueing a behavior. In other words, you're giving them a signal that says, go if you need to. In this case, you're putting them over on a perch saying go because you just saw them lower their tail. As soon as they go, you praise them because they went on the perch. And then anywhere that they do it that you don't want them to go, you just don't praise them. Raphael F. asks, my oven came with a warning that if I use the self-cleaning feature, my birds will die. What do I do to clean my oven? Well, you just kind of go back to the way my grandmother used to do it, my mother after her. I use baking soda and water to scrub the inside of the whole thing out. Then I wipe all that out with a microfiber towel. Once that's done, I wipe it out with a microfiber towel. And then I go back with vinegar to wipe it out again to make sure all of the residue of the baking soda is out of there. And if you look at it a couple hours later when it's dry, if there's any white blotches in there, then you know you still have some baking soda. And just spray a little vinegar on it and wipe it out. So technically we use grease. It's called elbow grease. You can actually clean it by hand. Right, little girl? Right? Joanne W. asks, my bird doesn't like it when people come over. How can I fix that? Well, the trick there is when you know people are coming over, make sure that day your bird gets no treats. You know how you lay out a bunch of different things and let the bird pick its favorite item out of that batch. That's the item you're going to train with. So you use that treat to train the bird. So now the only way they're going to get that is when the people come over. Now if the people are afraid of your bird, they can offer it to your bird a number of ways. You could put a little bowl on the end of a stick if it's really that bad, or you can just put it on, have them put the treat on a plate, that far end of the plate. If your bird isn't afraid of plates, you got to use something the bird's not afraid of, and have them gently offer it to your bird. So they get used to the idea that when people come over, they're going to be offering them treats, and they're not getting any other treats that day except from those people. They'll figure it out. They're smart. That's one way. The other way is to find someone who's not afraid of birds and doesn't mind getting bit, and have them actually work on training them, using their favorite treats, doing some of the techniques we have in our training videos. And once they get used to another person, then you add another person to the list, you keep working, and eventually they get along with most people. So, Peach, you've just been sitting there doing nothing, you silly Peach. You silly Peach. You big silly Peach. You're the big silly Peach. My peachy girl. That's my peachy girl. Please become a patron today. Go to patreon.com/Chloe Sanctuary and sign up to give us $1 an episode. That's 2 episodes a month. That's $24 a year. We could sure use it. We could use your support. Without the support of our patrons, this video cast would not exist. Right, Pippa? Pippa. Pippa. Say goodbye to the people, Pippa. Say goodbye to the people. We'll see you next time. We welcome your feedback on our videos. We look forward to your insights, tips, questions, stories, and pictures. You can email us at cockatude@chloesanctuary.org, reach us on Twitter @Chloe Sanctuary, and join with us on our Facebook Chloe Sanctuary page.
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.